Well, I'm going to go ahead and dive in here. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Maura Powell with Kentucky Youth Advocates. I help run our external affairs work. Each year we put out a toolkit of sorts for electoral advocacy, and this being our toolkit for this year. It's a way to kind of, engage our many advocates and partners in the work and during this, important election season. So just a real quick, nonpartisan electoral advocacy consists of advocacy efforts that are made during the election year, but that are not aimed at, a single candidate or party, but rather at getting constituents to participate in the election and be informed voters. So electoral advocacy includes voter education on election and ballot measure process, on providing nonpartisan candidate forums and debates, nonpartisan materials on candidates, and then issue-based materials for candidates. So this presentation today is really to be that tool for our advocates. It's to kind of strengthen your toolkit when you are thinking about, as an individual or as an organization, to engage with your local candidates during this time. We have this presentation and a blog post up on KYA's website, so you can quickly link to that and share it out with folks and use it as a tool beyond just this webinar. And why this matters, as here at Kentucky Youth Advocates, our mission is to be the independent voice for Kentucky's kids, and we always welcome our advocates to join us in that. And our big push during election season and during the legislative session, kids can't vote, but we need to keep their issues front and center. They need caring adults like you all and those that you serve or work with to ensure that their voices are heard in the state house or at the ballot box. So we offer those tough questions to candidates, whether that's local, state, or even our federal delegation, about what the state of child well-being is in the Commonwealth or in your community, and then how we can improve those outcomes for kids and families. And before we begin that work, we at KYA are very much of, what gets measured gets changed. So understanding kind of that baseline of where kids and families and, what the state of their well-being is. And KYA and our, data partners, we offer lots of different resources to help folks understand that. So the Kentucky Kids Count Project offers data at the county level and by race and ethnicity. And on the presentation and in links and all that, you can find resources for that. If you're not familiar with the county data book, that'll be coming out for this year in the fall. And so we're really looking forward to that. The Kids Count Data Center, which is by the Annie Casey Foundation, they have over 100 indicators of child well-being, so goes beyond what we put into the county data book and share out through the Kentucky Kids Count Project. So checking that out to see where kids measure up in education, to health, child well-being, economic security, all of that. And that can help us inform questions, which we'll get to here shortly. And then, of course, the Blueprint for Kentucky's Children is a coalition of child advocates, like many of you, with a shared state policy agenda focused on thriving communities, strong families, and successful kids. And if you're not familiar with the Blueprint, or this is kind of the first time that you're getting connected with us, we welcome you to learn more about the Blueprint and some of the past wins for kids that we've had, and where you can kind of plug in going into the 2025 session. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Hannah McCarty, to kind of give us a deep dive into what some of the what's on the 2024 ballot and how we can be engaging our candidates this year.
Awesome. Thanks, Maura. Like Maura said, my name is Hannah McCarty. I am a project manager here at Kentucky Youth Advocates. I'm happy to be here and talking about what's on the ballot in Kentucky this fall. So there's a number of elections included in this ballot, including Kentucky's 6 U.S. House of Representatives that we send to D.C., half of the state Senate, so all those odd districts, which is 19 seats total, the full state House of Representatives, 100 seats, and then also local elections based off of your jurisdiction to select local leaders like the school board, mayors, judges, city officials, city clerks, etc. And then we also have two proposed state constitutional amendments. That includes Amendment 2, which we will be talking about in a bit. So when engaging candidates, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. Before we engage them, we want to make sure that we are doing our research. So get to know the candidate's background, their platform, and key issues. All of these should be available on their website or social media channels. And really kind of rule of thumb is know them before you need them. So build early and ongoing relationships with candidates and elected officials. And don't be afraid to ask direct questions, share relevant data and stories, offer solutions, and really emphasize your why around a particular issue or concern. And you can engage candidates at town halls or other public events on social media or at scheduled visits at your organization or their office. And when engaging candidates, make sure that you leverage local support, mobilize grassroots networks in these efforts to engage candidates as well. All right, so getting into candidate questions, we're going to go over a couple examples of different topics that you can ask and engage. These will be available on the website, but for now, we'll just be kind of going over some of the different areas or topics to talk about when engaging candidates. The first would definitely just be their track record. So asking them what they've done for kids lately, their policies, and how those policies serve the needs of every Kentucky kid. And then also asking questions on topics like economic well-being. Kentucky ranks 36 out of 50 states for economic well-being, and over 1 in 5 Kentucky children live in poverty. So asking questions about, if elected, what steps will they take to address the needs of Kentucky children and working families? What will they do to support necessary efforts to address like Kentucky's housing crisis? What will they plan to do around expanding food and childcare access? And what are their plans for addressing workforce needs? Are just a couple examples of some of the economic well-being topics. There's also education is a major topic when thinking about the needs of kids. So Kentucky ranks 33rd out of 50 states for education, and less than half of Kentucky's children enter kindergarten ready to learn. So when engaging officials, asking how will they support families' access to quality early childhood education and care? How will they support schools? Asking questions around how they will provide supports to improve reading and math proficiency scores. How will they support schools in being able to holistically address the needs of students and families? Are all some ideas to talk about when engaging with legislators and elected officials. And then health as well. So Kentucky ranks 36 out of 50 states for overall health of children. So if elected, what are your priorities to improve Kentucky's ranking and improve the health of children? Asking questions about how they'll improve access to healthcare, especially mental health and behavioral health systems for young adults and young people. And then lastly, family and community. So Kentucky ranks 43rd out of 50 states for family and community. So engaging questions like, if elected, how will you work to strengthen the child welfare system and keep families together safely? Kentucky families and communities have been deeply impacted by the opioid epidemic. So what policies and strategies do they support that promote substance use prevention, early intervention, and recovery? Engaging questions around the juvenile justice system. How will they support public safety while also ensuring youth are able to get back on the right track after making a mistake? These are just a couple examples. All of these will be available afterwards. But I will go ahead and pass it on to my colleague, Alicia Watley, to talk a little bit about Amendment 2.
Awesome. Thanks, Hannah. So as she said, my name is Alicia Watley, Senior Policy Director here at KYA, and I'm going to dive into something else that everyone in Kentucky is going to see on their ballot this year in November when you go to vote. And so we want to take a little time to just focus in on Amendment 2. There are going to be 2 constitutional amendments on the ballot, and we wanted to really do a deep dive into this one today because it is really specific to education funding. So we know that's going to impact kids all over the state depending on the outcome. So as a result of House Bill 2, which was passed during the 2024 legislative session, there is going to be this constitutional amendment, and the language is outlined here as to what you will see on your ballot. What's inside the orange box is what will actually be in front of you when you go to vote. But essentially, this is related to the way that public dollars are spent in Kentucky when it comes to education funding. So right now, the Kentucky Constitution says that public dollars have to be going to public school systems, or the common schools, as it's sometimes called in the law. And this ballot, the choice that you'll see on the ballot here is whether or not you think that the General Assembly or our legislators should have the option to spend those public dollars on non-public or private schools. So that's really what the vote is about here. It is important to note that the question that's being asked and the result of this vote will not define how state dollars are going to be spent. This does not change anything related to the current budget or a future budget. It just allows dollars to be considered to be spent in different ways. So in the future, if this were to pass, our legislators would have the option to decide to spend those dollars on non-public or private schools. So it does not allocate any money at this point, and it does not change any policy in the state as it relates to school choice. So those are things that will not be a direct result of this yes or no vote on the ballot this year, but they are things that people are considering as they think about this vote. So we encourage you to check out some of the resources that KYA has also put out around what was House Bill 2, what was included in it, and what are some of the implications of that. We have a blog about that on our website, and then also about what is school choice and why are people talking about that in regards to this issue. So we encourage you to dive into that as well to just better understand what are the implications and what are some things that could result from this vote. So again, what you see in the orange box here is what will be in front of you on the ballot, and you'll have the option to vote yes or no. And that's exactly how it will be worded, what you see in front of you there. And so we also wanted to take a minute to kind of step back and go over the process of how we get to the point of changing Kentucky's constitution through an amendment process on the ballot. And so the referendum process is kind of outlined in front of you here. There are several steps that have to happen before we can change the language of the Kentucky Constitution. And so the first piece of it is it's kind of a shared responsibility of both our legislature and then also the citizens of the state through voting. So the first step is that there has to be a bill proposed through our legislative process of what kind of change they would like to see to the language of the Kentucky Constitution. So of course, that's the first step there, just proposing an amendment through the legislative process. And then that has to be agreed upon by both the Kentucky House and the Kentucky Senate. And so, as I mentioned, in this case, House Bill 2 progressed through both the House and Senate and was passed. So it got through that agreement of the General Assembly stage. And what we're coming up on here soon is that public vote in November. So the language from House Bill 2 is going to be on the ballot in November, and that's when the citizens of Kentucky really have a chance to weigh in on this issue and decide if there's something that they think should be changed in the Constitution. And then if majority vote there, if people vote yes, it will be certified as a change to our Kentucky Constitution. The language will be updated, and there'll be, proclamations and publication of that if it passes. And then if it does not pass, again, the votes will still be certified as they are with any electoral process, and then the Constitution will not be changed if we vote no. So that's kind of the process and how we got here, and what just understanding of how we even look at changing our Constitution here in Kentucky. We've had several constitutional amendments on ballots in recent years, so you've probably seen this in on other topics in the past. But this one has a really direct impact on kids, so we wanted to take some time to just walk through the process, walk through what you're going to see on your ballot in November, and make sure that everyone feels comfortable and confident with that on how they want to vote when they get there in November. So we also, if you have questions, put them in the chat, but we're going to have a Q&A here in a few minutes, so you can also hold them to that time. If you have questions about this process or about specifically Amendment 2 that you're going to see in November, and otherwise, I will turn it back over to Mara to really dive into some next steps and what you can be doing.
Awesome. All right, thanks Alicia and Hannah for that breakdown. So preparing for election day, it seems kind of far away, but it's really only a couple months away. And I know lots of us are already getting, whether it's bombarded with, texts or commercials or ads on social media and all of that. It's very much front and center. And so there are several things that we can be doing leading up to election day to make sure, one, you're prepared and you're an informed voter. So first of all, one big date to remember is October 7th, is when to make sure that you are, if you are not already registered, that you could renew your registration, update your registration to make sure you have the right address and all of that. That has to be done by October 7th. And then one of the big things is making your plan to vote. So whether that's absentee, mail-in, or earlier day of in-person voting on November 5th, there are deadlines that lead up to absentee and mail-in. So if you're interested in that, and that's the best option for you, you can go to that govote.ky.gov to find deadlines from the Secretary of State's office about what that looks like for your community. You can also at that website, look up where your polling location is in your community, and polls open across the state are 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on election day. And so finding out, where that is and making the plan to get there, transportation or otherwise, to make sure that, you're able to do that successfully on November 5th, if that's what your plan is. You can also look up your sample ballot so you know who is exactly will be on your ballot, and who you'll be voting for. So, Hannah broke down, we'll each be voting on House members or our state Senate members, and then our congressional delegation, of course, the president and vice president, but those local elections are really important and will really impact your day-to-day life as well. And so being informed on who those folks are and who those candidates are, getting to know their platforms are super important. So like we say there, review the sample ballot, get to know those candidates, read up on those proposed constitutional amendments. Alicia gave us an overview of Amendment 2, but there's more to learn and hear from other folks about what the impact can be of that amendment. And then, of course, go vote on November 5th. So you can find all of these details and deadlines and all of that on the Secretary of State's office. That is govote.ky.gov. And lots of information over there. Of course, we also put it on our website. So I'm now, we'll do some Q&A if there are any, and if not, we'll have, a shortened up presentation here. I am seeing one in here from Theta. Kentucky is one of only states in the U.S. that has safeguards set up in the Constitution to protect. Alicia, can you take this?
I'll say I can respond to that if you want, Mara. Thank you, Theta, for the question. So, whether or not the vote in November will not necessarily take any specific protections away from children in education settings. What it will do is allow, or if it passes, it would allow our General Assembly to spend public dollars on non-public or private schools. So again, this is not allocating the money at that point in time, but it is just opening up for that to happen in the future, is what is being proposed. So we can't say one way or another what would happen with public school funding or exactly what outcomes could happen in the future from that. But you all can look at a lot of information is out there and available as to what some implications could be from that vote. And so that's what we'll be deciding in December or in November, is if we want public dollars to have the opportunity to be spent in those non-public or private school settings in Kentucky.
Yeah, thank you. And Marcy wrote in there, gives the General Assembly the power to make those changes. And I think that's one way to sum it up there. Any other questions? We hope this is a helpful tool for yourselves, but also to be able to take back to your organization, networks that you work with, your board, your families that you may work with, whatever it may be, to use this presentation as a tool to, be equipped to be able to talk with candidates in your local elections, using these tools to look up who will be on your ballot and how to get connected with those candidates. Those candidates and your elected officials, you are their constituent. They are there to serve you. And so, like Hannah said, know them before you need them. Get to know them, ask them those tough questions so that they are set up for success and you have that relationship to give them feedback as they, either enter office or continue to stay in office. And, we can make changes to better the outcomes of kids and families across the Commonwealth together. All right. Well, we appreciate you all joining us. We'll keep it short and sweet. If there aren't any additional questions, we appreciate everyone tuning in, and we will be sharing out slides and that blog link and the recording here today with you all, so you can share that far and wide as you see fit. Thanks all.